This is Renaud Anjaran. I'm going to walk you through how to pay your Chinese suppliers by bank wire transfer, often also called as TT, Telegraphic Transfer. It means the same. So first, let's look at the most common payment terms that you can expect. And I'm making the assumption that you are buying some fairly standard products. Let's say some off-the-shelf products. There's no heavy product development. Okay, so what they will typically require once you get in contact with your suppliers is going to be something like this. So you're the customer, you issue a purchase order, maybe you have a contract for them to sign, it's great. Then they will require an advance payment, and usually they will say 30%. This is something sometimes you can negotiate it down a little bit, maybe 20-25%, but they will always start at 30%, and many of them will not budge. And by the way, before you send this money, you need to make extra sure that they know exactly what you want them to make. So typically here there will also be an approval of a pre-production sample that you get in your hands, and you say, okay, this is fine. If I have the same in production, I'm happy. You know exactly what I want, okay? And you issue your purchase order, or maybe you just sign the supplier's pro forma invoice. Some people do that too. You wire 30%. Then your supplier, they're here. I call them the manufacturer and exporter. Let's assume you're buying directly from a manufacturer. Actually, if you buy from a trading company, it doesn't make much difference. What are they going to do? They're going to order the components or the materials from sub-supplier A, sub-supplier B, let's say. And these people are going to make it, or maybe it's already on stock. They will deliver quickly to the final manufacturing plant that will start to do production. Then, when everything is completed, it's highly suggested that you appoint a quality assurance agency to perform a quality inspection. And let's say everything is okay, then they will require you to send the remainder. So if you wired 30%, then the remainder here is 70%. Again, that's extremely common. Before they ship and before they do the process, all the paperwork for export, okay? Then they will send you the documents which will allow you to take the products out of custom, okay? In your country. If you don't have the documents, you cannot get the products if it's sent by sea. If it's sent by air, it's a little bit different. Once it's sent out, typically that's it. Especially if it's a small package with DHL or UPS, that's another story, but they will also typically ask you to pay these 70% before they do the sending, okay? Now let's look at another setup that you might be able to negotiate and get them to agree on. Now, what are the differences? Okay, the start is the same. Here again, you might be able to negotiate a slightly lower deposit. Then the manufacturer would order the components from this sub-supplier, they will deliver, manufacturing takes place. Still highly advised to do a final inspection, and then they will ship. Okay, for inspection you agree, okay, you can ship, then they will ship the goods, and once they have shipped the goods, they will typically fax or maybe scan the bill of lading from your forwarder. I'm assuming that you purchase under FOB terms, and this is shipped by sea. Okay, this is what most importers, when they buy from China, do. So you buy FOB, they have to work with your freight forwarder, so they have to wait for your agreement to ship the goods, okay? But still, they get the bill of lading, you don't get that. And you need it to get the products out of custom when they get to your country. So they ship the goods out, they prove to you that they sent it out, you pay the remainder, so typically 70%, then they send you the originals of the document. Okay, here they send you the copies, the scans, or by fax, but here they send to you the originals, which you can use to get your goods out of customs in your country. This is better because you, well, first you pay a little bit later, typically 1 or 2 weeks later. It's better for your cash. And second, you are sure they have shipped by the time you send these 70%. So you keep this leverage in your hands until you see the bill of lading. And the bill of lading will typically spell out the name of the product, the quantity that they shipped, and there's quite a bit of information on there that you need to check and confirm before you send this amount. All right. Now, there are some frequently asked questions about paying Chinese suppliers by TT. Again, TT is bank wire transfer. So the first one is how to negotiate better payment terms. If your company is very famous and well established, of course, the suppliers will have more confidence in your ability to pay them, in your straightforward business practices, and they will want to do business with you. Okay, so it's much easier to negotiate some better payment terms this way. You might not be famous, but you might arrange financing of your suppliers, meaning that you can pay them later and then you arrange something either with your bank or with another financing company. It's relatively similar to factoring, and it means your suppliers will get the payment earlier than you send the payment. Okay, so that might ease the concern of your suppliers in terms of cash flow on their side, and also in terms of the ability to be paid by your side. Okay, if you arrange financing, the terms will usually be much better than if they arrange their own trade financing. Number 3 is you have a buying office in China, you contract with them from your China company to their China company. It does build some level of confidence because they know they can visit you, they know they can sue you if you end up not paying. And finally, if you're just a great salesperson and you can really hype things up and get these people really excited, who knows what you can negotiate. It's always humans doing business with humans, so that of course works. What are the best payment terms that you can possibly dream of? Well, obviously that would be you get all the goods and you have 3 months before you have to pay anything. That happens very seldom. Not impossible, but very seldom. What is something slightly more realistic but still very, very good for you? Very, very good terms. It's the same as the last graph that I showed, except that here the first payment might be 20% instead of 30%. Here, second payment is before shipment, but is only 40%. And then you get the goods in your hands and you do the third payment of 40%. Again, a big company will have an easier time negotiating for these kind of things, but it's not impossible. If you contact 100, 200 suppliers, your products are very standard, you're not tough on price, you might find some people who are open to this, but it's very, very, very good, very favorable to the buyer. Don't expect that, especially the first time you work with them. A few mistakes. So I listed 3 mistakes that you should never make. So if this is the first time you work with Chinese suppliers, bear this in mind. First, never ever prepay 100% of the order before production. I've seen a lot of buyers trying to build some goodwill with the supplier this way. This is a big mistake because then nothing happens, they're not in a hurry. If you find some quality issues, then they say, well, take it or leave it. That's really not good. You need to keep leverage in your hands as long as possible. Number 2 is don't wire the deposit. Okay, that's what they call deposit. I call it a down payment because in 99% of cases they will never send it back to you. So it means you need to have a relatively high certainty that they know what you expect of them. Generally, it means you receive some pre-production samples that you approve. And do not wire to their bank account just because you get an email that said, here's the invoice with the bank account. There are many hackers having a great time hacking the Chinese suppliers' email boxes and sending emails that include invoices that direct payments to their own bank account, sometimes not even in China. So the first time, get them on the phone, on Skype, on WeChat, QQ, whatever, and get them to confirm it, if possible from 2 people from the company. And finally, this is really a typical question. Oh, the name cards of the company and their office logo and everything says this is the company name, but when they send me the invoice, it is in another company's name. Is it a problem? Okay, so not necessarily. There's a lot of reasons for this. Typically, maybe they cannot do the export paperwork processing in their own name, or it's very small and they want to keep things very simple for themselves, or they want to avoid taxes. There's a lot of reasons. It does happen in China. Unfortunately, it's still very common. What you don't want is to send money to the other company and then nothing happens or something bad happens, who knows, and you complain to your supplier and then they say, well, we don't know who that is, or why did you send to that other company? Or maybe you want to sue them, maybe you have a contract, but then you cannot show the trail of the payment going to the same company that you contracted with. So this is not good. So one thing that you can do is ask both of the companies to write down a statement, sign it and stamp it, and explain clearly that company B is collecting payment on behalf of company A, and that company A is the supplier to your company and is still, liable as per the terms of the contract or the purchase order or whatever document you are using to spell your terms. Okay, if you don't do this, you might run into some issues, even though really this is very common. All right, I hope that this was useful. If you have any questions, don't hesitate. Get on the blog qualityinspection.org, send a contact request, and we'll be happy to answer. Thank you.